I look frozen. There we go. Hello, Heather Martinez here with Let's Letter Together, and today I am going to show you how to fill Neuland TwinOnes with metallic and cover ink and why it's important. Well, I will tell you that Neuland has 5 different sizes of brush nibs, and they're my favorite to work with. And the TwinOne is one of my favorite because it's right there in the middle when it comes to size. Let me show you what I mean. So the Neuland Twin One marker has 2 different sides. It has a brush side, and though all of their other markers I would call wedge, I would consider that the chisel for the TwinOne is slightly different. Now, where do you put ink in a marker that has 2 sides? You can unscrew either side, just like that. And to fill a marker, all of Neuland markers are refillable. We're going to start with the cover, which is a white marker. You're not going to see the ink go in as easily. So what I've done is I've turned the bottle upside down, got the ink inside of the injector bulb, and then squeeze the ink into the core. And I usually fill one side up until it doesn't take any more ink. See how it's sinking down just slightly? Let's let that sit for just a second. Okay, add a little bit more. And you can go to Neuland's Markerpedia site and they tell you how many refill bulbs can go into each marker. Now keep in mind that just because you squeeze this injector bulb with your fingertips, that doesn't mean the entire bulb fills up completely. And so they're referring to what is a full bulb. And I would assume that the TwinOne probably takes 2 of the injector bulbs full. I like to make sure that however my nib came out of there is going to go back in because it will keep the marker from or the nib from getting crushed and the inside of it getting crushed. Then I like to open up the other side to see if it's, oh, I should have loosened that up. That's pretty tight. I'll come back to that one. Let's go with a color. So I've got silver, green, and blue here, and I'll open up the blue so you can see how it comes from the factory. The injector bulb and needle are separate. I like to make sure that these are well shook up because a lot of the metallic part is at the bottom. You'll also hear the 2 little beads in there. You want to save this cap and you want to save this box if you ever plan on traveling with your ink because you don't want to travel with the top on because this can get bent and this is where you'd get most of your leaks. Now, the first time you go to use this, you have a little seal in here you need to puncture. So you're going to push in and then twist. And then when you flip it upside down, and fill the injector bulb. I'm going to do this a few times because I want to make sure that I get really good metallic and not just the blue color. And this is going to be a lot easier to see. Just going to make sure that I can unscrew both of these. Yep. So this time I'll start from the brush side. You'll notice that the nibs are 2-sided, which is great because you can reuse them if you take them out and preserve the other side of the nib. So I'm just squeezing that in. I'm squeezing this in pretty quickly because I can see where my ink is going. But if I were refilling a different type of Neuland marker, I don't get to see it directly because it goes into a hole in the back of the marker like this. And so I wouldn't ever see that. So I would just put in one single drop at a time. But this way, I can go pretty quickly. And you can see with these empty markers how quickly the ink goes down. And especially with a colored ink, you can see if it's full or not. I'm going to go ahead and put this on and then I'll do the other side just so that you can see. Oops, sometimes it gets stuck in there. Let that sink down a little bit. Now you can see the ink is starting to match up a bit. I tilted it to the side so some of the ink went down the side. That's okay, but you want to keep as much ink as you can inside of that nylon cotton core. Now, these markers don't come in these colors, so that's why I like to purchase empty TwinOnes and fill them with my favorite colors. Let's do one in silver. Some sides are a little easier to take off than others, and as long as you fill one side completely, it will make its way down, all the way down to the nib. And I'll just do these in sort of batches. I'll fill them up and then let them rest and then add a little bit more. Because it'll take time for the ink to get all the way down to the nibs and all the way through to the core. So what questions do you have about the Neuland TwinOne? Go ahead and put it in the comments. I'll reply. And in addition to the two nibs that it comes from the factory with, the brush and the chisel, you can also get converters, and you can get a round nib to go in the TwinOne and it's called a flat chisel, which does great for calligraphy scripts, especially italic. But the brush nib on the TwinOne is one of my very favorites. Okay, we can do the other side. Let's make sure we get a nice full bulb. Silver is a very popular color. Already you'll see it starting to fill up. We'll let that rest a bit. And when you have metallics, you want to make sure that you're storing them horizontally. So you might put them in a pencil bag or something like that. And then when you get ready to use them, whichever side you're going to use, you're going to put face down so that the ink and the metallics make their way down to the nib. You'll want to do that about, I would say, about 10 minutes before you use them. And same goes with the cover ink. The cover ink, though it's not metallic, it's white, it's a little bit thicker than other colored inks. And so it can get a little bit, your nibs can get a little globby, I guess I would use the word to describe it. And if that happens, just simply run it under water and squeeze it out with a paper towel or a rag. And when you do that, what it does is it kind of evens out the ink a little bit and helps it get unclogged. This green seems to be just a little bit thinner than the other colors. The silver and the blue seems to be a little bit thicker. We're going to come back to those in just a minute so you can see. This green, it traveled quickly down the core. And sometimes what I'll do, just to get the ink started on the nib, is I'll put ink directly on the nib, whether it's the back side or the front side. And that helps the ink travel to the very tip of the nib. And you want to make sure that the tip of the nib is really saturated before you use it, because otherwise a dry nib will break down pretty quickly. So because I put so much ink in the blue, you'll see that it's already making its way down the nib on both sides. So if I wanted, especially with the brush nib, because the brush nib moves, it's flexible, and that's what gives it its beauty. So a lot of times I'll put a little extra ink on that just so that it soaks all the way to the core. Doesn't take much, just a couple of drops. So there's our blue. Let's see how our silver's doing. It still needs to find its way all the way to the core. We'll get the nibs going. Just about there. If you have a brand new marker and you want to get the ink all the way to the end of the nib, you can also use centrifugal force by spinning the marker. And sometimes I'll do this with the TwinOnes just because they're both sided. Now, this white, we're not going to see a difference here, but I know that none of the ink has gotten to the tip of this because it was quite dry. Did it make it to that side? Nope. And I will come back later and add more white. So why metallic? Well, one of the great things about metallic is this time of year, it can be very, very festive around the holidays. Metallic is very popular, but you can also write on black paper with it, which makes it super fun. So a lot of times what I'll do, and if you've seen one of my other videos where I make wreaths, so I'll draw 3 circles. It can be very organic, like this, and I'll add just different natural motifs as part of it. And the brush allows you to do this quite nicely. And normally, when we're working with containers, we write the word first, and then we put the container around it. but in this case, it was the drawing that takes precedence. So what could we put in the middle here? I'm going to write Noel because I know it'll fit. The brush is very forgiving. And of course, I'm going to tell you that this looks much better in person with all of this great metallic shine and reflection. So there are a couple of different places that you can get these great products. Neuland.com. And if you go to my website, letslettertogether.com, you can check out the voucher and get 15% off any order. If you're in the UK, you can go to Inky Thinking and make sure that you do a search for TwinOne. And another favorite marker of mine is the big one. And if you're in the US, we have a new reseller. Elena can help you. And she is at sketchcrafters.com. And again, email me and I'll get you a voucher for a discount. So enjoy your metallic markers on